If we go into podcasts, it walks us through. There'll be a video here as well, and you can see your podcast. You can see that there's a key down here that shows your podcast is active, awaiting approval, or not started. And you can see green, yellow, and gray, which one it is there. I can import a current podcast. This is really important. If you're already doing podcasting, maybe you've got 100 episodes already and you're using like Libsyn to host them, no problem. You can import your podcast. You can still use the same hosting and you can import it into Audello, and then Audello powers everything and tracks everything and can automate everything, which makes it more powerful than it's been before, and it's all under one roof. You can have multiple podcasts in here. So that's one question that we're getting. Can it power multiple podcasts? And the answer is yes, it can. But if we go through creating a podcast, I'll show you how easy that is. So first of all we do is we go in and click create a podcast, and it then just explains the 4 key parts of it, and you get started. You'll enter the name, so we'll call it podcast name. You select a category, which let's call it marketing and management podcast, my name, and then an email, your email at gmail.com, and then you click next, and it will go through and ask you descriptions and things that iTunes and Stitcher and everything else that it uploads to will want. So this is a description, a subtitle, whatever your subtitle is for the podcast, keywords, so you put your keywords in here like marketing, business, software, business advice, affiliate marketing, whatever it is that your podcast is about. If it's about gardening, you would obviously put gardening in there, and then the URL, so we'll just put Audello, but whatever the URL is, and then it'll ask you, does it contain adult content? You click no. Now this before has always been pretty tricky. Now with your podcast, you'll usually want an image podcast graphic that goes with it. It tells you exactly what that should be here, so you know exactly what you need to be doing, and you can click next. If you click next, obviously iTunes wouldn't accept your podcast without an image, so it just lets you know that. I'm going to just skip that right now. So yeah, I understand, that's fine. And then look, we're creating a new podcast, so do you already have the first episode of this podcast? If you say no when you save your podcast, it's going to say, right, step number 1, get your first episode, because obviously we can't publish it live till at least there's 1 episode. But I'm going to say yes, I do. Like, let's say I've already recorded it. What it's then going to do is it's going to scan all of my folders, and then it's going to let me select from a specific file. So if I just go, let's use this one, that's my first episode, that's something I recorded before, so I'm going to click save. So now I've created a podcast, as you can see, podcast name just here, and it's got an episode created within it, and now it's going to let me submit to directories. Now at the moment, you have to go through and use different tools. You've got to go and set up an RSS thing. You've got to go and use a plugin on WordPress and set up a WordPress site. Then you've got to go and submit to different directories and do it all manually, and it's a real pain in the ass. As you can see, I've literally just created a podcast. That's now ready to go, and I've just done it through step by step like that. It's so powerful. Now, if I want to submit to different directories, I can submit to multiple directories. I'm going to keep adding more and more in here. Now, if they're not here, you just choose other. So that's fine. It'll submit to anything. But we have these walkthrough guides for these guys, which are some of the bigger ones, and we're going to add to them and just make these thumbnails a bit smaller, and we might have like the top 10 or something. But I want to submit it to iTunes. Now, it can be confusing, but we have a video that walks you through exactly what to do, which I'll pause right now, but that video shows you exactly what you need to do. And it basically says copy the URL here. This has already been created for you. That's the podcast URL, which usually you'd have to go and do with a different product, and then click to submit to iTunes. If I click that, it's going to then come up and say, hey, do I want to launch iTunes? And you're going to get this come up in iTunes now. So let's just move that so you can see it. And you're going to say, hey, what's your feed? I'm going to go, well, it's this one, and continue. I'm not going to do that because this is obviously a test podcast, but that's literally all you do, and then you close it down. The video says once you've done that, come back here and say, yes, I've submitted it. And I'll say, yes, I have. Are you sure? Yes, I am. Great. And then it says, cool, awesome. Well, the way that it works with iTunes, it's different with different ones, but they'll take up to 7 days to just verify your podcast. So they just double check that you're not just putting test files up and it is a real podcast. And then they send you an email saying, congratulations, your podcast is live, and here's a URL. And then all you do is you paste the URL in here. And again, this video tells you exactly that. So you paste the URL and click validate. At that point, it's all live and synced up. Now you can go and you can go through that process for as many as you want. So you can syndicate out to multiple directories from within Audello without having to do anything else, and it will go out to all of them. Now, when your podcast is live, it'll look like this. So you've got all your episodes here. You can see when they're published. They're all in one place like this. And any single time I add a new episode, I can come in and go, right, I want to add edit files. So I've created a new recording today. This is my new podcast. Let's hit save. And it says, okay, great. Now I can enter a description for it. So this episode is about whatever. I interview whomever. And when do I want to publish it? I can publish it right now, or I can actually schedule out and go, you know what? In November, let's schedule it for November the 4th. That's when I want it to go out. And click add these episodes. It's now going to add it in, and it asks if I'm sure, and I'll say yes. And you can see now I've got an episode of my podcast that's new, that's being published on, and you can see when it's being published. I can schedule as many episodes as I want, so I can just keep recording content and scheduling episodes out into the future, literally that simply. It's that simple. Right now, scheduling doesn't work, for example, with something like SoundCloud if you're using it for hosting, and we are compatible with SoundCloud, Libsyn, Amazon S3, all the main audio hosting, and it does work with all of those. So you can schedule on any of those platforms, which you haven't been able to do before. Now, again, I don't want to go through everything because there's so many features, but I can edit the settings of my player or my podcast at any time. If I go into edit the player, this is a player that's the main player excuse me, for my podcast. And I can choose from some different designs that we have here. I can change the colors, make it look however I want. And I can also use this one, which is the main big player that we have, which has every episode and sharing and viral stuff and everything. And that could be like the main player for your podcast. And I can just choose how I want that to look. And then I hit next. It's going to ask if I want to show all the stats for each individual episode. It's going to ask me if I want events to happen for each episode. This is a really cool thing. So I can set up events for every episode. So let's say I'm interviewing an author. I can interview an author, and I can be like, okay, well, I'm talking about the book 5 minutes into the podcast episode. I can have it, if I have my podcast player on my blog as well, for example, I can have it so the player, it drops down an event 5 minutes in with an image of the book, a description of the book, and a link to Amazon with my affiliate link or whatever to go and buy that book, which is great. And this is stuff that just, you can't do right now with these kind of audio players out there or podcast players. So I can say yes if I want to include those or no, and then it'll ask me how I want to order it and if I want social sharing, and I just hit save. So it lets you do all of that. You can view statistics. We've got detailed statistics for like geographical stats and everything in there, and it makes it that easy. Now, how do I get audio in here? Well, we have our desktop app, which I showed you just now, which is up here. Now, for me to record content, I just do this. Hey guys, I'm just recording some audio content as a test. As you can see, it's just literally counting up here, and I can record it straight into the app. Let me just press stop, and as you can see, it's immediately added to my queue. I can press play. Hey guys, I'm just recording some audio content as a test. As you can see, it's just literally counting up here, and I can record it straight into the app. So you can see that's really high quality. I can change quality settings in preferences and stuff. I can set all of that up. I can literally in here, I can go, right, I'm going to rename that to podcast episode 2. Now, if I'm recording on Skype, if I'm on Skype on a call with somebody, it will record both sides of the Skype call automatically, crystal clear, and save it for you. So you can just do an interview on Skype and make audio content this quickly. Now, that's great for a podcast episode, but just think about like doing an interview and making some content for your business. Like, I just want some audio content to give away. I can just do this. I can then automatically come in here and assign it to, say, a playlist on my site already, so it just updates on the playlist, shows the most recent episode. Or I can go to a podcast and go, I want to assign that to a WebActics podcast. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, the episode name is my test episode. Keywords are business, the same as we did before. A description, obviously you'd make that real. Publish date, I want to publish that whenever. Let's publish it, say the 5th of the 11th, and hit assign to my podcast. So that's now done. It's assigned. I can choose a thumbnail for this if I want right from here, and then I can hit upload. Anything I've synced Audello with, because it sets up with all the standard audio hosting options like Libsyn or SoundCloud, I can just select where I'm uploading it to automatically. I can go bump right, upload it to Libsyn, and right from my desktop app now it's going to record it. It's converting it while it's being uploaded as well, so it's converted into perfect web and mobile ready format, etc. I've got sharing links straight away. I can copy the URL. It also saves a copy of that file to my desktop.